أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. You're not the only ones that are fasting. Goodness, just smile a little bit. All right, so we looked at a little bit of the Quran and Quran City yesterday. So today our focus is going to be Surah Al-Qamar. Now I will not completely follow this, basically because we don't do Saturday and Sunday. So you skip 2 days anyway. But the children will follow this to some extent. So if you've got your Qurans, or you've got your phones, or you've got Surah Al-Qamar with you, today on the group, I think you were sent the building of Surah Al-Qamar, and you were also sent another page, and you were sent my annotated Quran. So you could either open it on GoodNotes and annotate it yourself, or you can look at what you have now. But I'm going to go through some basics of Surah Al-Qamar that you may want to look at. So that's Surah number 54. And later on, maybe you can have a look at how I annotate the physical Quran. So the first thing you've got to know is Surah Al-Qamar is Surah number 54. It's not rocket science, right? Surah number 54. Qamar means the moon. It has 55 ayat, and it's a Makki surah. You'll also find that we normally give every surah in Quran City a postcode, somewhere where you can identify it by. So if I told you that the postcode for Surah Al-Qamar is 865438, in your head you should know that 86 is the surah that was revealed before it, and 38 is the surah that is revealed after it. Okay, I'll repeat again. So the postcode for Surah Al-Qamar is 865438. Okay, are you good with that? So I'm hoping you know what surah number 86 is and what surah number 38 is. Any idea? Okay, I'll let you find out. These are all Makki surahs. So Makki surahs are divided into 3. Early, middle, and late. This is middle Makki. So 86, 54, 38. And you will find every single surah of Quran City we have given this postcode. But that is the revealed order. So the Quran was revealed in a particular order, and then the Prophet is directed by divinity to put it in the order you see now, which is 1 to 114. So there are 2 orders. There's the arranged order, and there's the revealed order. On the website, you can download both, and you can have a look. Okay, so you now have got 55 ayat, surah number 54, Makki, and you've got the postcode. And you know it's middle Makki. So you know this is a Makkan surah. It will talk more about the why of religion than the how of religion. Every single ayah of Surah Al-Qamar ends with Ra, Re, or Ra, whatever you want to call it. Okay, every single ayah. These are just little bits and pieces that I think is important to know. It's in Juz 27. It's also known as Iqtaraba as-Sa'ah, which means the hour is coming near. There are 2 surahs of the Quran that start with Iqtaraba. One is Surah Al-Anbiya and one is Surah Al-Qamar. Okay, so Iqtaraba as-Sa'ah. It's also known as Mubiyadda. Mubiyadda comes from Bayth, which is white. So it's known as the surah of radiance, or the surah of brightness, or the surah of whiteness as such. Now let's look at the benefits of recitation. The Prophet said, whosoever recites Surah Al-Qamar will have their face shining like the bright moon on the day of Qiyamah. Now these are metaphors. When you and I do wudu, we have different du'as. You know that, right? Okay, if you didn't, we'll provide them for you. Matching your bathroom, that's what we did. So we match them to the color of your bathroom. Anyway, so if you look at the du'as for wudu, when you wash your face, you say, Ya Allah, make my face bright. Don't make it white, not black. It's not colors. It's talking about white as in radiant, black as in not sad, not down. So when he says that your face will be like the full moon, it means the surah is something you and I have got to internalize. Imam Sadiq says that when you have difficulties in life, recite this surah. In fact, some ahadith say keep it as a taweez. I wouldn't recommend that. I would say recite it. He also says if you want respect of people, and I talked about it before, that if you want self-esteem, you want your children to have self-esteem, then recite Surah Al-Qamar. It's a phenomenal surah, like all the others in the Quran as well. Now let's just look first quickly at the focus. If somebody were to ask me, what is Surah Al-Qamar about? And I'm hoping that this will inspire you to know the focuses of all the 114 surahs of the Quran. For example, every single day, you and I in Salah recite Surah Al-Fatiha, right? Forget about the other surahs because they have different ones. And if somebody asks, what is the focus of Surah Al-Fatiha? I'm just moving a bit, because this is the one you're going to recite in Salah. I don't think you'll recite Surah Al-Qamar today in Salah, okay? Maybe you will, I don't know. But let's pick on Surah Al-Fatiha. So if somebody said, what is this? What is the focus? What does Surah Al-Fatiha talk about? In essence, it is in a nutshell the whole concept of the Quran. You divide it into 3 parts. So the first part tells you who is Allah. So you start off by saying He's Rabbil Alameen, He's Rahman, He's Rahim, and He's Malik. These are the 4 things. So say, for example, you went shopping for a God. You didn't have a God, or you didn't understand any of this. You'd want to know if this particular God that you worship had these 4 qualities. Rabb, Rahman, Rahim, and Malik. So divide Surah Al-Fatiha into 3. 1, who is this God? Rabb, one who takes you to your full potential step by step. Rahman, one who is extremely merciful. Rahim, one who is more merciful to those who are attached to him. The way I describe this is when I look at dentists. When your teeth hurt, you go to a dentist. And the dentist is Rahman when he treats you. If you have any sense, then you will go to the hygienist on a monthly basis, 6 monthly basis, whatever it is. And that is Rahim, because she or he will look after your teeth. And finally, Malik or Malik is owner. When he says Maliki Yawmiddin, you can say Maliki Yawmiddin is the one whom you will have to be accountable to. The next stage, the second stage is you say Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Can you imagine? You say, oh my goodness, this God is so phenomenal. We are only going to be attached to him and only him we will ask for help. So the angels, if you imagine when you're praying, there's this bunch of angels here, and they say, well, what do you want? You said Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. What the heaven do you want? And you say Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. We wish to reach our full potential. So when the angel of death comes, I can say, thank you for life, I did my best. So the answer comes in the 3rd section when he says, Siratal ladina an'amta alayhim, ghayril maghdubi alayhim wala dhalin. Follow the path of those whom I have blessed. That's what he says. Then he says, not the one on whom there's anger. Maghdub is a noun, it's not a verb. He doesn't say I am angry on. He says on whom there is anger and not those who are lost. So if I had any sense at all, it's not rocket science to sit down and ask, who have you blessed? That's the first question I will ask. I want to reach my full potential, Ya Allah. So who have you blessed? And he says, read the rest of my Quran. So Surah Al-Fatiha is in essence a nutshell of who, how, and an answer. Right? So every surah has this sort of focus. So now you understand Surah Al-Fatiha. Very briefly, let's look at Surah Al-Qamar. So the first thing we find in Surah Al-Qamar is that it talks about the miracle of the splitting of the moon. So it talks about miracles, and we'll talk about mu'jiza and what that means. It then talks about the past nations who refused to follow divine guidance. Whether it talks about Prophet Nuh or Hud or Saleh or Lut or Fir'aun and Musa, right? Or basically talking about the people of Fir'aun. It's actually talking about people who made excuses and not following divine guidance. When Allah says something, when the Prophet said something, they just didn't want to change. And we will see the different aspects when we go to the different aspects of the different sections of Surah Al-Qamar. So the focus of Surah Al-Qamar is those who didn't follow divine guidance. But the other focus, which is probably the main focus, is where he repeats 4 times, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. And I'll talk about that. I've been mentioning in the last 2 days, but I'll talk about it a little bit more today on that focus. So I repeat again. Somebody said, what is Qamar about? I would say people who didn't follow divine guidance. And then the divine guidance that's been given to me and you is the Quran. And if I sit and say, well, it's so difficult, it's in Arabic. It's so difficult to understand because when I pick it up, it's thee and thou, and it's all about punishment. I don't know what it's all talking about. He's telling me and you, all you have to do is put in a little bit of effort and you will be able to internalize the Quran. I will repeat again. The Prophet said, Allah will not punish the heart that internalizes the Quran. He just won't. So, I mean, I don't think it's anything difficult to know that my first step this Ramadan should be able to think, well, I know this much. So when this angel of death comes and they ask me in this grave, what did you do? I can say, well, do you know the Quran? Let me teach you. Right? Do you know what the focuses of each of the surahs are? And that is the confidence you should have about this book. We will never, ever, ever learn this book the way, give it the right it's supposed to. It's difficult in the sense that it's got so many layers upon layers upon layers. But we can make the effort to learn that much, which then we can use to change our lives. Okay? And if we don't, then we've been warned. So we can't say, Ya Allah, well, my mom didn't teach me Arabic. In madrasa, it was just basics. We can't make any of those excuses. Okay? All right. So that, in essence, is the focus. I'm going to keep on repeating this focus so that it comes out of your ears so much that you say, heard this before. And that's okay with me. I don't mind if you've heard it before or not. So now let's see the first section. So before that, 8 sections. First section, splitting of the moon and Qiyamah. Second section, Prophet Nuh. Okay? You've got it in your books or whatever we've sent it to you. Third section, Prophet Hud. Fourth section, Prophet Saleh. Fifth section, Prophet Lut. Right? Seventh section, are you good? You're not even with me. You're all moving away. Okay. So you got Musa and Fir'aun, and then finally you have the accountability, and then you have those who have taqwa, who will go to Jannah. Oh, by the way, really beautiful. Somebody came up to Sayyid Amuli, or Sheikh Amuli, and said, can you give me the address of Imam al-Zamana, Ajjalallahu Faraja? And Sheikh said, yeah, of course I can. So the man sort of sitting there thinking, I'm going to get, and he got a postcode, 5455. He said, you can find him in 5455. And the man sort of said, pardon? And he said, Surah number 54, ayah number 55. When we come to it, we'll talk about it. But right now, it's the intrigue that I want to put into you. And hopefully you will want to learn it right to the end. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to look at the first section, which is ayah 1 to 8. I suggest you look at the Quran either on your phone or I think on the Telegram group, she sent you my annotated Quran. So I'd like you to look at that so we can understand this and we can write down every single word. So I'd expect you from today to tomorrow to recite ayah 1 to 8 again and again and again. So much so that just like Surah Yasin, when it's recited, you know exactly where you are. I'm hoping, okay? But that's my aspiration. So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Iqtaraba as-sa'ata. Iqtaraba, you know what qareeb means, right? Qareeb means near. Iqtaraba, again, it's a derivative of the same word. Iqtaraba as-sa'ata. The hour is coming near. Well, the hour of what? It could be the hour of death. It could be the hour of accountability. It could be the hour of realization. Okay? So the hour is coming near. وَانشَقَّ الْقَمَرِ. You all know Surah Al-Inshiqaq. Inshiqaq means to rip from lengthwise, from top to bottom. Right? So this surah, Surah Al-Inshiqaq, talks about the ripping of the skies. We're not there yet. We're here. Inshaqqa al-qamar means the ripping of the moon. Now what happened? So it is said in a hadith that the Quraysh came up to the elders of the Quraysh came up to the Prophet and said, we really think you're a magician. However, we know that magic can only be done on earthly phenomena. So you can only do it on the earth. If you provide us with a miracle from your God, which is in the heavens, then we will believe you. And he said, you mean you will submit to God? You will agree that there is one God? Remember, the Makkans always agreed that there was a creator. What they did not agree with is that the Creator should give them instructions or they should be accountable. They believed death was the end. I'll repeat again. Lots of places in the Quran will tell you that if they are asked, who created the heavens and the sun and the moon and the stars? And they will say, Allah, one God. But they did not believe that He could tell you what to do, and they didn't believe in accountability. So will you submit to Him? Will you agree to what He says? Yes, they said, definitely. There are a couple of riwayah. One says that they went to the plains of Mina outside Mecca, and there's Mount Hira. And the Prophet pointed to the moon. It was a full moon. And Allama Tabatabai says this was on the 14th of Dhul Hijjah, 5 after Hijrah. Because that's a full moon. 15th is a full moon, right? So he said he pointed to the moon. The moon was on either side of Mount Hira. And then he put it back together again. Some riwayah say that the moon was seen on one side of the mountain of Abu Qubais and the mountain of Kunaykiyan. Allahu Ya'lam. But all we know is that this did happen. That the moon was split apart. They saw it. I'll tell you what they say in a minute in Ayah 2. But let's go back to science. What does NASA say? Is there a crack in the moon? Does it exist? Is it right through the middle? I mean, now it's quite easy. All you have to do is Google it, right? There's lots of craters. There are lots of cracks and fissures in the moon. It could be there. It could have been covered. Nobody knows. Some say it's true, some say it isn't. But you and I know that this Quran tells you the truth. So as far as you and I are concerned, this moon was split and put together again. Now look at their answer. So they said, this is the second ayah. وَإِن يَرَوْا آيَةً. When they see a sign of God, يَعْرِضُوا. They ignore it. They just ignore it. And what do they say? وَيَقُولُوا. They say, سِحْرٌ مُسْتَمِرٌ. This is nothing but a continuous magic. Now what does that mean? Mustamir means that if you were to tell them anything, they would put it down to magic. So you could bring the sun and the moon and the stars in their laps, they would still say, find an excuse that it's magic. How does it relate to you and me? We could have 100 people on this mimbar, or you could read them or, on books, or you could watch YouTube which tell you, please understand what you are praying. When you are reading Quran, when you are reading Salah, understand what you're doing. You cannot experience Quran except if you read it in Salah. I'm a Khoja. All I recite after Alhamd is either Ikhlas or Kawthar or Qadr. Oh, I get some smiles. Or Asr. Maybe Falaq or Nas if I'm really clever in Shab. And I think, okay, got to recite it. But we stick to that. And God forbid you were to recite another surah. They will say, have you stopped being a Shia? I'm being recorded, by the way. I know that. Okay? No, you haven't. You should recite other chapters of the Quran. I'll call it chapter to make it easy for you. Other surah of the Quran. And this is exactly, these people were a little bit different. We laugh at them and we say, well, they said this is continuous magic. We say, yeah, those are books we don't understand. You know what? We'll recite Ankabut, Rum, and Dukhan on Laylatul Qadr. After that, when somebody dies, I'll recite Surah Yasin. Are you serious? That book itself, that surah itself tells you it is for the living and not for the dead. So it's time to sort of change a little bit, right? And we've become so used to sitting on this farsh, and please come and sit as much as possible, but we've come to sit and not interact. Just sort of hear and read and read and read. Okay, so hopefully you will have a revolution. Anyway, so they says, وَيَقُولُ سِحْرٌ مُسْتَمِرٌ. Whatever you showed them, didn't really matter. Then Allah says, وَكَذَّبُوا. Recite it, it's ayah 3. Okay, وَكَذَّبُوا. They belied it. Just pushed it aside. They said this is a lie. وَاتَّبَعُوا أَهْوَاءَهُمْ. Why did they do that? Because this was affecting the way they lived. وَاتَّبَعُوا أَهْوَاءَهُمْ. أَهْوَاءَهُمْ is their desires, is their vain desires. Often we don't do things because we want something different. And this is opposing what we're doing. So he says, وَاتَّبَعُوا أَهْوَاءَهُمْ وَكُلُّ أَمْرٍ مُسْتَقِرٍ. But every single thing is settled. It's a done deal. You don't have a choice, Allah says. This is how it will be. The moon will go on its course. The sun will follow its course. You can't change it. A human being can only reach his or her full potential if they follow divine guidance. Otherwise, they won't. Now, generation after generation after generation, we've sort of accepted the fact that we don't need to understand even, forget about Quran, even talking to our Rabb in Salah. We've sort of accepted the fact it's okay. Because it's okay with everybody else, it should be okay with me. It's not okay. All right? So let's go a little bit further. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُمْ مِنَ الْأَنْبَاءِ. In Gujarati, ja is go. In Arabic, ja is come. Okay? All right. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُمْ. So came to them. مِنَ الْأَنْبَاءِ. From the news. Naba. You know Surah Al-Naba, right? Beginning of the 30th juz. So Amba is news. So news came to them. Ma fihi muzdajar. In which there was somebody who told you off. So Allah here is saying that when I give you my revelation, I will be telling you off. And if you really thought about it, the only person who tells you off is the one who cares. Moms are the greatest people to tell you off. You could be as old as anyone, but your mom will tell you exactly what you need to be told. Because she cares. It's bottom line. You may not like it, but she will tell you the truth. So here Allah says, in what I send you, in the news that I send you, there will be muzdajar. There will be elements of scolding, of telling you off. So the moment I read this, I think, that means this surah is going to start telling me off a little bit, and I need to listen to it. And then he says that what this telling off does. It is hikmatum baligha. Hikmah is wisdom. Baligha, you know Nahjul Balagha, right? Something that reaches you. He said, in this scolding, you will find wisdom that will touch your heart. Fama tugnin nudhur. But he says the only problem is that it will prevent you. It will be a warning to you. There will be nadhir is a warner, right? Nudhur is warnings. There will be warnings in it. Problem is, will you take them or not? So I'll repeat again. In this there are telling offs. In this telling off there is a wisdom which is far reaching that will hurt your heart and it'll hit your heart, and it is a warning for you. So if my mom were to tell me that I need to, brush my teeth for 2 minutes, it's not because she hates me, it's because she loves me. If she tells me go and pray, and hopefully your children will listen to all this as well, but it's really important to understand that. He said it's a warning for you. But what happens? He says, فَتَوَلَّى عَنْهُمْ. He's telling the Prophet, you know what? After you've told them, that's all you can do. Turn away from them. يَوْمَ يَدْعُ الدَّاعِيَ إِلَى شَيْءٍ نُكُرٍ. Until the day when the one who calls them, in other words, the angels who blow the trumpets for the day of judgment will call them, and it'll be a day of nukur. Nukur is something that's disliked or something that is unknown. So here there is something that we're being told as well. Do I know where I stand? So if I were to think this is a day of judgment and I'm standing there, do I know approximately where I'll be? If I've done wrong, have I asked forgiveness? Have I got an account of what I have not finished or not done? Am I organized enough to know that, or do I say, well, I'm not really sure. I've done some good, some bad. I'm sort of neither here nor there. So here it's telling me people who refuse accountability or who deny accountability are those who are neither here nor there. It's the unknown, and they don't like keeping a record of what they've done. If you go back to when you became baligh, whether it was between 9 and 13 or 9, I don't know, whatever you follow. So go back to that time and think, is there anything I've done that I need to sort out? Was there anyone I upset? I remember, and I'll bring you back something that really bothered me. As a child, I remember being taken to people's houses. So my mom would take me to people's houses to sit. This was a tradition in East Africa. We would go and we would sit with people, have chai and cake, and come home, especially if they weren't well or they didn't turn up at the mosque. Literally, we had, on a Friday, every Friday afternoon, we had a ladies' majlis. God help you if you didn't turn up. Because if you didn't turn up, everybody would come to your house. So sometimes, even if you weren't feeling well, you just wanted to come because they would turn up at your house. Okay? So my mom would take me to these houses. And I remember at one particular house getting so bored, and she had a sofa which had a little bit of a hole in it. So as a child, I put my hand in the sofa and I pulled out the stuffing. I'm telling you what I did. Okay. Now I remember that very, very precisely. And I remember then thinking, I don't know how to put this back in now. So I took that stuffing home. Quite a lot of years later, I heard about this. I was listening to this story about this particular person who had picked an apple from an orchard. And she knew that that apple wasn't right. But she put the thread, the needle, that what she was stitching with, she put it in the apple and she tasted a bit of that apple juice. And that was Gusby. Now when I heard that story, I thought, oh my goodness, I took somebody's stuffing and I couldn't remember who it was. I didn't know where it was from. I must have been about 7 or 8 because my father died when I was 10. It was way before then. I can't remember, but it just stayed there. So the only thing I could do was be able to give some money in charity in her name, and hopefully, I hope on the Day of Judgment when she says, where's my stuffing, I can say, I gave some sadaqah in your name. Now I'm talking about stuffing. There's so many things. I'm just picking on something that maybe we think is insignificant, but it isn't. To someone, it might be really big. For example, if I said, let me pick somebody's scarf, I'll pick Faiza because I know she'll understand. So if I said, I hate that color. Now for me, it's not her I'm picking on, but it's her scarf. But it might hurt her a lot. How do I make that better? What do I do? And these are things that this surah brings me across and tells me, sort your life out. So I would probably do something called Radde Mazalim. You've heard about it, right? Radde Mazalim is to rub out the injustice you've done. And people always ask, but how much? So if I said, I don't like Faiza's scarf, I actually do. But I said, I don't like Faiza's scarf. How do I do that? How much do you pay? You know how much you've hurt someone. You know the extent of hurt that you have caused. And therefore, make sure you're able to recompense them, because on the Day of Judgment, she can say, this is what you did to me. You hurt my heart. Anyway, so here it says, it's a day which they don't know and they dislike, because they don't like accountability. So the lesson from here is, number 1, I don't follow my whims and desires. 2, I am absolutely accountable for everything I've done. Then what will they be like on the Day of Judgment? He says, خُشَّعَمْ أَبْصَارُهُمْ. Their eyes will be filled with horror, absolute horror. Why? So if somebody showed me my life and said, this is your life, you're too young to remember the program where they said, this is your life. Do you remember it? No, please say no, because that makes me feel good, okay? So at 63, I remember that program. They got people on television, and they brought them their relations and their friends and what they'd done in their past, and they gave them a book. Google it, come on, it's a good program. And they told them, this is your life. Okay, it's exactly here. So the horror in your eyes and my eyes will be when I see my book and I think, oh my goodness, stuffing in a sofa, right? I didn't do anything about it. I hurt so-and-so. I did whatever I did, and now I can't correct it. So he says, خُشَّعًا أَبْصَارَهُمْ يَخْرُجُونَ. They will come out. Khuruj, is exit, right? يَخْرُجُونَ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ. Ajdath is unmarked graves. So their graves will have been there for so long, there will be no markings on them. They will come out of unmarked graves, كَأَنَّهُمْ like جَرَادٌ مُنْتَشَرٌ. Jarad is locusts. If you Google a swarm of locusts, or whatever search engine you use, you will find it's like loads of insects everywhere. And muntashir means they'll be just everywhere, as though they are going around with no direction. So this also tells me that you and I need to have a direction in life. In Surah Al-Baqarah, he says, وَلِكُلِّ وِجْهَةٌ هُوَ مُوَلِّيهَا فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Every human being, every creation has a direction, has a goal. So seek the best of goals. So maybe use Ramadan to think, what is my goal in life? What do I want? Where do I want to be? I repeat this every Ramadan. So if somebody were to ask me, what is your goal in life? I would probably say that when the angel of death comes, I would like to have the ability to say, thank you for life. I did my best, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I'd like to say that. And I tell my children, I'd like to see them. I told them at the door of Jannah, and they said, no, Mama, at the door people get stuck. Can you pray that we come inside, right? So you pray that those around you would be in and I tell them they could go in Jannah and they could actually wait for me and take me with them, so on and so forth. So you need to have a goal that you're working towards. Now that is a long, sort of your, if I can say, the goal that's up there, the macro goal. And you have micro goals. So my micro goals, want to learn the Quran, want to be able to have the ability to pay 51 rakats of salah in a day, want to be able to, at the moment I swim about 20 lengths every morning, I want to do 50. Okay? You should have these goals in you. Physical ones, mental ones, emotional ones, and spiritual ones. I want to be able not to be, not to look at someone and get angry, or whatever the case might be. Be able to let people go. There are so many things that need to be done. As a grandma, when I look at, and maybe there's some grandmas here and hopefully they're listening. So as a grandma, I find it very hard when I watch my children raising their children, because they have their own methodologies. All of them raise their children differently. And I need to have the sabr, and these are my micro goals, the sabr to be able to allow them to raise their children the way they want and not interfere. Except when you think they're going a bit too way out. And then even the ability to tell them in the best of ways. These are my micro goals. Because it can be pretty hurtful to a daughter-in-law or a son-in-law or a daughter even when you try and tell them what to do. It's not fair. When you teach the children, are you able to maintain justice? These are micro goals that we need to have. So here he says, Jaradun muntashir, they'll be just floating around. Need to have a goal. All right, next ayah. Muhti'ina ila da'i. Hata'a, where from muhti'ina comes from, means running towards a target. But these people, ila da'i, they're only going towards the noise. They're not going towards the goal they have. So they're going wherever there's a noise. Muhti'ina ila da'i. Now look what happens. Yakulul kafiruna. Those who cover up the truth, they say, Hada yawmun asir. This day is so hard. This day is extremely difficult. When and how do I find something difficult? I find something difficult when I haven't done it before, or when I haven't read the instructions, or I've just let it go. So, small example. If you were going to go to the gym and you said, I'll only go one day. Most people subscribe on the 1st of January. And by March, the subscriptions are paid, but they don't go, right? So in order to build my strength, I need to be able to continuously practice something, continuously do something to be able to do that, right? So it's the same thing here. Accountability, I need to be accountable every single day. So before I go to sleep at night, are my accounts done? And it's not just the accounts that you have as far as your budget goes. But what about me? Where did I get to? How much did I learn? How much did I do? How many people did I hurt? How many did I help? What did I do with my life? This is all part of accountability. The good things I won't worry about. They get sorted anyway. But anything that is wrong, we need to be accountable for. Make a point this Ramadan to call people or to message them. And you can have a generic message. Please forgive me. Most people will say it's okay. But some may not. But it's good to ask and it's good to do things. So let's go over this again. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر. So the hour is coming near, whether it is the day of judgment. I will call it accountability. So accountability, whether it's daily accountability, accountability at death, or accountability at the end of time, is coming near. وانشق القمر. And the moon was split. Okay. Let me look at another aspect of the moon or split. When accountability happens, then the light that kept my darkness going splits. There's no light. I'm looking at it in a completely different way. Okay? So think about it. If I am not accountable and the light that kept me going was taken away, what do I do? In yaraw ayatan, even if you showed them a sign, yu'ridu wa yakulu sihrun mustamir. They will ignore it. And they will say, well, it's magic, all over again. So anything you don't understand, put it down to magic. وَكَذَّبُوا وَاتَّبَعُوا أَحْوَاهُمْ وَكُلَّ أَمْرٍ مُسْتَقِرٍ. And they belie it, they follow their desires, but everything is done. It's a done deal. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُم مِّنَ الْأَنبَاءِ. And what they receive of this news may be some scolding in it, but that's because He loves you. حِكْمَةٌ بَالِغَةٌ. It is wisdom that is far-reaching, it will touch your heart. فَمَا تُغْنِ النُّذُرُ. But the warning does not seem to avail, does not seem to have any effect on them. فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ يَوْمَ يَدْعُ الدَّاعِيَ. Turn away from them until the day when the trumpet will be blown, or the caller will call them إِلَى شَيْءٍ نُقْرٍ, to something they do not like, something that is unknown to them because they've never accounted before in their lives. خُشَّعًا أَبْصَارَهُمْ. Their eyesight will be filled with horror. You don't want to do that. You want to see your accounts and say, I knew this. I can sign it and I can write it off. يَخْرُجُونَ مِنَ الْأَجْدَاثِ. They will come out of their unmarked graves. كَأَنَّهُمْ جَرَادٌ مُنْتَشِرٌ. Just like locusts that are spread. مُهْطِئِينَ إِلَى الدَّاعِ. They will only go towards the noise. And those who covered up the truth will say, هَذَا يَوْمٌ عَسِرٌ. This is a really difficult day. So if I were to put this in a nutshell and conceptualize the first section, I would say that I could watch 100 miracles. You know, in spring, you just have to walk and see daffodils coming out of the earth. You just have to look at the trees that had nothing on them and suddenly there's leaves. I mean, look at your children. I have 5. And they were that tiny. And now I look at them and I think, my goodness, I got to go like that. And they say, Mom, I was asking one of them the other day, whether she could teach me something on the computer, right? And she went, you press this and then this and this and that, and then you just write this and it's done. And I'm going, hello. I taught you how to walk. I taught you to come out of nappies. And it took me ages. It wasn't just one day. I mean, it took a long time, and you're just telling me, and then I asked her a second time, and she said, yeah, press this. And it does, take it slowly, right? Take it easy. So these are miracles in life, are they not? The child that could not even hold their heads, the child that could not even walk, the child that could not even press a button, suddenly now tells you that you're too slow in pressing buttons. Okay? That's a miracle. So when we see them, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, they've become independent. Literally, Alhamdulillah, at every single process. So the first thing I take back is that when I see miracles, thank God that He gave them to me. Isn't it awesome to be a mom? Isn't it awesome to have a community like this? I mean, these are things that this Quran tells me. The second thing it tells me, be accountable. Please keep a record. I mean, nowadays you have phones on which you have so many apps on which you can put every single thing on. I mean, for God's sakes, you can put your salah on. The salahs you've missed, the fasts you've missed, everything is written down. You don't even have to write it down like we used to in little ledgers, right? You just put it on your phone. And the third thing here it says, You don't want to be one of those people who doesn't have a direction on the day of Qiyamah. So the way to read the Quran is, when I read Kushan Absarhum, Ya Allah, I don't want to be those that my eyes are filled with horror. When I read Hadha Yawmun Asir, Ya Allah, I don't want that day to be difficult for me. And that's the way to read the Quran. That's the way you interact with the Quran. Okay? Not just like Khoja here, Parain. So I'll repeat it again. Surah number 54, Surah Al-Qamar, 55 ayat, 8 sections. Focus of the surah, if you just put a little bit of effort in this, you will internalize the Quran. He will not punish the heart that internalizes the Quran. I'd like to end with one thing, which I absolutely love. And that is Surah number 8, ayah 33. Please have a look, if you can. So all the prophets we're going to talk about from tomorrow, there were tornadoes, there were floods, they were drowned, there were cyclones. My goodness, everything happened to them. So why didn't anything happen to the Makkans? Surah number 8, ayah 33. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ. Allah will never punish them whilst you are amongst them, O Muhammad. Number 1. Number 2. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَهُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. And Allah will not punish you if you do istighfar. Now it's not rocket science. To just do istighfar all the time. Not only between your two sajdas, astaghfirullah rabbi or atubu ilayh, but all the time. And we'll talk about istighfar a little bit more tomorrow. But in essence, if the Prophet is amongst us, and we have, because it's awwaluna Muhammad, wa akharuna Muhammad, wa awsatuna Muhammad. So the Muhammad of our times is Imam Muhammad al-Mahdi ajjalallahu faraja. He is amongst us. So we need to understand this. We need to keep him alive in our hearts and do istighfar. And then when those angels down there say, hello, we're going to punish you, you can say 833. God said he won't punish me because I did istighfar. And we'll talk about istighfar. And I acknowledge the fact that Imam was amongst us. Are you good with section 1? Yes? Okay. So inshallah tomorrow we will look at Prophet Nuh in a completely different way than you've been looking at it, just the ark and the people and whatever. But we'll talk about what happened. And hopefully you will read 1 to 8 as much as possible today if you can. I've got about 2 minutes. But in the 1 minute I've got, I'll bring this up tomorrow again, and maybe you can download it and then we'll talk about it, is that this is the month in which you start Salatul Layl. Only 1 rakat. Salatul Witr. You know, you finish your Sahri 10 minutes before Salah, don't you? I hope. So what do you do in that 10 minutes? Clear up. You could clear up in the morning. So Salah time today was 4 something, 4:47, 4:52, I think. I'm not sure what it was. 4:52. So if you take 10 minutes before that, you finished eating at 4:42, I hope. Sahri is mustahab. It keeps your body really, really healthy. Even if it's a glass of water. In those 10 minutes, recite 1 rakat of witr. Just 1. All you have to do is Surah Al-Fatiha, Ikhlas. Don't worry about the 3 times. Falak and Nas. Raise your hands. If you can't remember anything else, ask for forgiveness for yourself and everybody else. Hadha maqamu aidhu bika minan nar. This is the place that will save you from the fire. Al-af as many times as possible. Go into ruku and sujud. You do that for 40 days and tell me what happens to your life. Tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more about it. Absolutely phenomenal. So let's end with the Surah Al-Fatiha and the dua for protection. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين لي 5 أطفي بها حر الوباء العاتمة المصطفى والمرتضى وأبناهما والفاطمة